The war was over, but the world felt like it was holding its breath. The once busy battlefield now lay in silence, with only the sounds of the wind rustling through the tall grass. Dawn's first light painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, washing away the bloodstains of the night before. The soldiers who had fought so fiercely now sat, tired and broken. Their eyes were heavy, filled with exhaustion and disbelief that it was finally over. Among them was a soldier, weary from the long months of fighting. His name was Jack. He had seen more death than anyone should ever witness. His mind was clouded, and his body felt like it was made of stone. As he walked through the camp, he passed by men and women who seemed to be celebrating their victory, but there was no joy in his heart. He had fought for survival, not for honor. Now that the battle was over, he didn't know what to feel. The air was still, and the sky above was clear. There was a strange peace, but it felt empty. The dust from the battle had settled, but something still lingered, something Jack couldn't quite put his finger on. It was as if the world hadn't truly settled, as if the storm was only hiding beneath the surface. Jack sat down near the campfire, staring into the flames. The warmth of the fire was comforting, but his thoughts were far away. His mind kept returning to the events of the last few days, the fierce fighting, the noise, the chaos, and yet it had all come to an end. Now, there was nothing left but the silence. As he sat there, lost in his thoughts, he saw her. At first, he didn't realize it was her. She stood a few feet away, looking out over the camp, her figure silhouetted against the rising sun. Her long dark hair fell loosely over her shoulders, and she wore a military uniform that seemed to fit her perfectly. Her posture was confident, yet there was something soft about her presence. She was different from the other soldiers. There was an air of mystery around her. Jack couldn't look away. He didn't know why, but something about her caught his attention. Perhaps it was the way she stood, almost as if she was waiting for something. Or maybe it was the way the sun made her seem almost unreal, like she was a part of the dawn itself. She turned slowly, her eyes meeting his. Jack felt a jolt run through him. Her gaze was intense, almost piercing. It wasn't the kind of gaze that simply acknowledged someone. It was as if she saw right through him to the very core of his being. He quickly looked away, unsure of what to do. He had been in battles, faced enemies, and seen horrors. But this moment of quiet connection, felt different. The woman didn't move right away. She simply stood there, her eyes still locked on him. Jack's heart began to race, his mind swirling with questions. Who was she? Why was she looking at him like that? The tension in the air seemed to grow, as though the very world was waiting for something to happen. And then, without saying a word, she started to walk toward him. As she approached, Jack stood up. The closer she got, the more he felt the strange pull toward her. It was as if the weight of the war, the exhaustion and the confusion faded away, and all that remained was her presence. She didn't speak, but when she was close enough, she gave him a small nod of acknowledgement. Jack opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He had so many questions, but at that moment he couldn't find his voice. Without a word, she gestured for him to follow. Jack didn't know why, but he obeyed. He walked behind her, unsure of where she was leading him. They passed through the camp, the sounds of laughter and celebration echoing around them, but Jack felt like they were in their own world. He didn't know if it was the silence between them or something else, but the world around him seemed distant, like it was no longer real. They reached a small, secluded area near the edge of the camp. There she stopped and turned to face him. The firelight from the camp flickered in her eyes, casting shadows on her face. For a moment they stood there in silence, the world around them fading away. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm, but there was something in it that Jack couldn't quite place. "You fought well," she said. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. "But the war is over. Now you have a choice to make." Jack frowned, confused. "A choice?" he asked, his voice low. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked up at the sky, as if searching for something. In the stars. The wind gently tugged at her hair, and for a moment, Jack couldn't help but feel like they were both caught in a moment of something bigger than themselves. When she turned back to him, there was a quiet intensity in her gaze. "The war may be over, but your journey is just beginning," she said softly. "I need your help, Jack. I need you to follow me." Jack's heart raced again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something else, something unfamiliar. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to think. All he knew was that he couldn't turn away now. The sun was up, but the real battle was only just beginning. The camp slowly settled into a deeper silence as the sun began to dip below the horizon. The soldiers, now worn and battered, returned to their tents to rest. Yet for Jack, sleep didn't come. His mind raced, unable to shake the words she had spoken. "I need you to follow me." What did that mean? And why did it feel like his life was about to change forever? He paced back and forth in his tent, the faint flicker of candlelight casting long shadows on the walls. Outside, the air was cool, and the stars began to appear one by one in the night sky. The once vibrant camp seemed eerily quiet now, as if even the sounds of celebration had disappeared. There was only the faint rustling of wind and the soft clink of distant armor. Jack couldn't stop thinking about her. The woman who had approached him so confidently, whose gaze had pierced through him like 1,000 unspoken words. She had seemed to carry a heavy secret, one that she wasn't ready to share yet. And yet there was something undeniable about her presence. He had never met anyone like her, and the thought of following her stirred something deep inside him. Something he couldn't explain. The night stretched on, and as the fire at the center of the camp flickered and dimmed, Jack felt an undeniable pull toward her again. Something about the darkness outside made him uneasy, but it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. He could almost hear her voice in his head calling to him, urging him to make the choice she had hinted at earlier. Without a second thought, Jack grabbed his coat and stepped out of the tent. The night air was cooler than he expected, and the camp seemed emptier now. The soldiers had all retreated, leaving behind only a handful of watchmen guarding the perimeter. Jack's footsteps echoed in the stillness as he walked toward the edge of the camp, where she had led him earlier. His heart raced faster as he reached the secluded area near the edge of the camp. It was dark, the shadows stretching across the open ground. The only light came from the faint glow of the distant fire and the shimmering stars above. He paused, uncertain of what he was about to do. But as his eyes scanned the darkness, he saw her figure again. She was standing there, just as she had been earlier, waiting for him. She didn't speak immediately. Instead, she simply watched him approach, her expression unreadable. When Jack was close enough, she took a step forward, the night air swirling around her, making her dark hair seem to flow like shadows. Her eyes locked with his, and Jack felt his breath catch in his chest. There was something powerful in her gaze, something that made him feel as though he was about to embark on a journey from which there would be no return. "Are you ready?" she asked quietly, her voice as soft as the wind, but carrying an undeniable force. "The choice is yours. You can walk away, return to your life as it was, or you can come with me and see what lies ahead. There are things you don't understand yet, but you will." Jack opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His mind was a whirlwind of confusion. What did she mean? What had he gotten himself into? And yet, in the pit of his stomach, there was a gnawing feeling, something deep and instinctual that told him this was the moment. He could either turn back, returning to the world he knew, or take a step into the unknown with her. "I don't understand," Jack finally said, his voice shaking slightly. "What's going on? What do you want from me?" Her expression softened for a moment, a flicker of something almost gentle, before it disappeared behind the calm facade she always wore. "I'm not asking for anything from you, Jack. I'm offering you something. Something far beyond the life you've known. You think the war was the end, but it was only a beginning. What happens next will change everything. The weight of her words settled in the air between them. Jack's heart thudded in his chest as the realization hit him. This was bigger than anything he could have imagined. The war hadn't been the end. It had been a distraction. But for what? "Come with me," she said again, this time her voice more insistent, yet still calm. "There is more you need to see. More you need to understand. The world you know is not the only one that exists." Jack felt a rush of emotions swirl within him. Fear, confusion, curiosity. But above all, there was something else. Something he couldn't ignore. It was the same feeling that had pulled him toward her since the moment they first locked eyes. It was the feeling that told him this was the path he was meant to take. "I'm ready," Jack said, his voice steady now. She nodded once as though she had been waiting for this answer. Without another word, she turned and began walking into the shadows, disappearing into the night. Jack followed her, his heart pounding in his chest as he stepped into the unknown. The night had truly begun, and with it, a new chapter of his life was about to unfold. Jack followed her in silence, his mind racing with 1,000 questions, none of which had clear answers. The night was colder now, and the shadows seemed to grow, longer as they moved deeper into the camp. The quietness of the camp felt unsettling, as if everything had been swallowed by the darkness. There were no sounds of celebration anymore, only the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the wind. The woman led him to a small, secluded corner of the camp, hidden from view by large tents and sparse trees. The air here was thick, filled with the scent of earth and something else, something more metallic, almost like a faint trace of something dangerous in the air. Jack could feel it now, the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. She stopped in front of a large tent that seemed to be set apart from the others. Unlike the simple soldier tents, this one was grand, almost ceremonial. The fabric was dark, made from a material that shimmered in the faint light, almost as though it were alive. The tent seemed to pulse with an energy Jack couldn't explain, and as she turned to face him, Jack felt a sharp chill run down his spine. "This is where we must talk," she said, her voice firm but quiet, as if trying to make sure they weren't overheard. Jack glanced around, but there was no one in sight. He nodded, still uncertain but unable to turn back now. Whatever was happening, he knew he was already too deep to walk away. Without a word, she moved toward the entrance of the tent, her hand brushing against the side as if it were guiding her. She paused for a moment, looking over her shoulder at Jack. "Come inside," she said, her voice carrying an unspoken command that he couldn't ignore. Jack took a deep breath and stepped forward, ducking beneath the cloth entrance. The inside of the tent was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was large and luxurious with an almost surreal quality to it. There were soft, thick rugs covering the ground, and glowing, translucent walls that seemed to hum with an energy that pulsed, in time with his heartbeat. In the center a table sat, dark wood smooth as glass, and around it were chairs made from some exotic material Jack couldn't identify. The lighting was dim, but the glow from the walls gave off a calming, almost hypnotic warmth. She gestured for him to sit, and he did so, unsure of what to expect next. The atmosphere in the tent was tense yet calm, like the moments before a storm. Jack felt the weight of her presence even more here. She was no longer the stranger from earlier. There was something deeper in her eyes now, something that told him she wasn't just a soldier or even a leader, but something more. But what? She seated herself across from him, folding her hands on the table, her gaze never leaving him. For a long moment they just sat there, the silence stretching between them like a vast chasm. Jack shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but she didn't speak. It was as though she was waiting for him to say something, anything, to break the stillness. Finally, Jack couldn't take the silence anymore. "Why did you bring me here?" he asked, his voice low but steady. "What do you want from me?" Her expression softened slightly, though there was still that deep, inscrutable look in her eyes. "I told you before," she said, her tone calm but serious. "You've been chosen, but not for the reasons you think. You see, The war you fought in wasn't the end. It was a distraction. There's something much bigger happening. Something that involves you. And I need your help to stop it. Jack's mind spun. Stop what? He asked, leaning forward, suddenly more awake than he had been in hours. The woman leaned in slightly, her voice lowering to a whisper. You're part of something much larger than just this conflict. The war wasn't about conquest or power. It was a test. The real enemy is out there, waiting for us to make the first move. And when they do, they won't stop until everything we know is gone. Jack's heart skipped a beat. His instincts told him to run, to turn away from whatever. This was but his curiosity, his need to understand, kept him rooted to the spot. I don't understand, he said, his voice filled with frustration. What do you mean? Who's the enemy? What do I have to do with any of this? She sighed, as though she had been expecting this reaction. I know it's hard to believe, she said softly. But you're the key. They've been watching us for a long time, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now that moment has arrived. We have to stop them before it's too late. Jack sat back in his chair, his mind racing. He felt the weight of her words, but they didn't make sense. How could he, just a soldier, be the key to stopping whatever this was? She studied him carefully, her expression unreadable. I can't explain everything right now, she said, but I will, soon. For now you need to decide. Will you stand with me or will you walk away and let everything fall apart? Jack's head was spinning. But one thing was clear. His life was never going to be the same again. The war he had fought was nothing compared to what lay ahead. And if he chose to stay, everything he knew would be changed forever. As the tension between them grew, Jack realized he was facing a choice that would define his future. The door was open. He could walk away, or he could follow her into the unknown. But there was no turning back now. The air in the tent grew heavier with every passing moment, and Jack felt as though the walls were closing in on him. His mind raced, trying to piece together what she had just told him. But everything seemed impossible. A war that was merely a distraction? An enemy that had been watching them all this time? It didn't make sense. How could he be part of something so much bigger than he had ever imagined? He glanced at the woman across the table, her calm demeanor unchanged. There was no sign of hesitation in her eyes. She was certain of everything she had said, and that certainty sent a chill down Jack's spine. He could sense that this wasn't just a matter of war. It was something far more dangerous, something that could reshape everything he had ever known. Why me? Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What makes me so important in all of this? She leaned forward, her hands still clasped on the table, her gaze unwavering. It's not just you, she replied, her tone low, almost conspiratorial. You've been chosen because of what you've already done. You fought in the war, survived the battles, and faced death. You are a survivor, Jack. But more than that, there is something inside you. Something that makes you the key to what's coming. Jack shook his head, trying to process her words. I don't understand, he said again, his voice rising with frustration. I'm just a soldier. I've fought my battles, seen the horrors of war, and now it's over. I don't have any special abilities or knowledge. I'm nothing important. She smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. It was knowing, as if she understood something that Jack didn't. That's what you think, she said softly. But there's more to this world than just fighting. There's a reason why you survived everything you have. The things you've experienced have prepared you for this moment. You just don't realize it yet. Jack stared at her, a sense of unease creeping over him. He had always felt like there was something more to his life, something that he couldn't quite grasp. But this felt like it was beyond his understanding, beyond anything he had ever imagined. Yet, despite the doubt that gnawed at him, something inside him whispered that she was telling the truth. The woman leaned back in her chair, her eyes softening for the first time since they had met. You're not alone in this, Jack. There are others, people who have been chosen too. But you're different. You were born for this, whether you realize it or not. Jack's heart skipped a beat. Others? he asked. Who are they? What do they? No, she shook her head slightly. I can't tell you everything just yet, but I can tell you this. The people who've been chosen are not just soldiers or warriors. Some are scientists, some are diplomats, some are thinkers. They all have something in them, something that will make them stand apart when the time comes. Jack leaned forward, his confusion deepening. And what is this time you keep talking about? What's going to happen? The woman's expression grew serious again. A war unlike any you've ever fought in. This time it's not about territory or power, it's about survival. Ours and theirs. She paused, her eyes darkening. There are forces out there, ancient forces, that have been manipulating events for centuries. They've been waiting for the right moment to strike, and now that moment has arrived. Jack felt a cold shiver run through him. Ancient forces, what do you mean? Who are they? Enemies beyond our world, she replied, her voice steady but laced with urgency. Enemies that have been watching us for centuries, pulling strings in the shadows, making sure we stay divided. But they've miscalculated. They didn't count on us finding each other, and now they'll pay for their mistakes. The tension in the tent seemed to thicken. Jack's mind was spinning, the weight of her words pressing down on him. A part of him still wanted to walk away, to ignore this and return to the life he knew. But another part, something deep inside him, knew that wasn't an option anymore. He was already part of something far bigger than he could have ever imagined. And what's my role in all of this? Jack asked, his voice almost a whisper. What do I have to do? She met his gaze, her eyes unwavering. You'll lead us. You'll guide us through the darkness and into the light. You'll be the one who stands at the front when the battle begins. You've already proven you can survive anything. But now you have to be more than just a soldier. You have to become something else. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. Led them? He wasn't a leader. He was just a soldier who had been thrown into a war he didn't even understand. But somehow, in that moment, he felt the weight of the responsibility settling onto his shoulders. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about saving something much bigger than himself. She stood up, her movement fluid and graceful, like she had known exactly what would happen next. The others will be waiting for you, she said. They're ready. We just need you to take the first step. Once you do, there will be no going back. You'll either lead us to victory, or we'll fall together. Jack stood up too, his legs slightly unsteady, as the full magnitude of the situation hit him. He looked at the woman who stood there waiting, watching him closely. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision pressing on him. It was a choice that would define everything to come. Without a word, Jack nodded. I'm in, he said quietly. The woman's eyes softened, a faint smile crossing her lips. Good, she said. Now, we begin. The weight of the moment was unbearable. Jack stood there, still absorbing the words she had just spoken. It was as if a door had been opened, revealing a truth he wasn't ready for, a truth that shattered everything he had believed about the world. A war unlike anything he had known, ancient enemies, chosen people with mysterious powers. None of it made sense. But deep down, he knew he couldn't walk away. The quiet, rational part of his mind screamed for him to run, to find safety and peace after the chaos of the war. But there was something else, something undeniable, that called him to stay. The woman's presence seemed to fill the tent, drawing Jack's attention back to her. Her calm eyes held a depth of knowledge he couldn't begin to understand, and her quiet confidence felt like the calm before the storm. You're ready now, she said, her voice steady, almost like she was guiding him down a path he had been destined to walk. The choice is yours. You can walk away, forget everything you've learned tonight, and live the rest of your life like nothing happened. But you know as well as I do that you'll never be the same. You'll always carry the weight of what you could have done. Jack opened his mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. His mind was in chaos. fighting the urge to say no, while his heart pushed him in the opposite direction. "I'm not asking you to fight this battle alone," she continued, her tone softening slightly, "but you must be ready to lead, Jack. You'll have to take on a responsibility much greater than yourself, and that responsibility comes with sacrifice. The war you fought, the battles you've survived, they're nothing compared to what's coming. The enemies we face now don't just want power, they want everything. They want to reshape the world, rewrite history. But we won't let them." Jack's gaze drifted to the glowing walls of the tent, the strange, pulsating light filling the space. Everything around him seemed to blur, as if the world he had known was slipping away, replaced by a reality he couldn't quite grasp. "I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted, his voice shaky. He had never felt more uncertain in his life. "I'm just a soldier. I never asked for any of this." "You don't need to be ready yet," she said. "But you will be. You have already made it this far because you are capable of handling far more than you realize, but the choice is yours. We'll be waiting, and when the time comes, you'll have to step up. Will you be the leader we need?" Jack felt the weight of her words settle in his chest like a stone. He closed his eyes, imagining what his life would be like if he walked away, if he left this all behind. He could go back to a life of quiet simplicity, maybe even find a sense of peace after everything he had witnessed. He could forget about the war, forget about the woman standing in front of him, and forget about the looming threat that now seemed to hang over the world. But the truth gnawed at him. He couldn't ignore it. He knew that if he walked away now, he would spend the rest of his life wondering what could have been. He would never find peace. The world was changing, and he couldn't hide from it. The battle wasn't over, it was just beginning. Jack straightened up, feeling a surge of determination rising within him. "I'll do it," he said, his voice stronger than he felt. "I'll lead. Whatever it takes, I'll do what needs to be done." The woman's eyes softened for the briefest moment, and for the first time, a genuine smile spread across her face. It was small but filled with understanding. "Good," she said. "You've made the right choice, Jack. Now come with me. There's something you need to see." Without another word, she turned and walked toward the back of the tent. Jack followed her, his mind still swirling with everything he had learned, yet now filled with a strange sense of purpose. She stopped near a glowing object, a device he hadn't noticed before. It was a small, intricate structure, with moving parts that seemed to pulse with light. The woman knelt beside it, and Jack followed her lead. "This," she said, "is the key to understanding what's really happening. It's part of a much larger plan. This device, it holds information, data from the past, from the future. It's our only chance to stop them." She activated the device with a swift motion, and a holographic image sprang to life above it, casting an eerie glow across the tent. Jack leaned in, his breath caught in his throat. The image was clear: maps, diagrams, faces of people he didn't recognize, all spinning around in a chaotic blur. It was like a glimpse into another world, one he had never seen but could now feel with every fiber of his being. The woman stood up and turned to him. "The war wasn't just about the survival of our species. It was the first stage of a much larger conflict. The enemy we face isn't just out there. They've infiltrated everything, every government, every organization. They've been waiting, watching, making their move in the shadows. This is why you were chosen, Jack. Because you'll be the one who leads us in this fight, the one who stands between us and the end of everything." Jack's heart pounded in his chest. The weight of her words settled over him like a storm. He had made his choice, but now there was no going back. The road ahead was dangerous, filled with uncertainty, and he couldn't predict what lay on the other side. But one thing was clear: he wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was something more, and the world was counting on him. The woman extended her hand toward him. "Are you ready, Jack?" He hesitated for only a moment before he took her hand. "I'm ready," he said, the words feeling more final than anything he had ever said before. And with that, the journey began.